Hi, and welcome to the New Property Show. I'm Steve McMenamin. In this show, we're going to be joined by Joe, who's going to share with us a client's perspective of building a brand new home. Sean's going to be sharing with us his experience with private lending in the banking world. Ahmed will be showing us an innovative product, which is 3D printing for new homes. But first, Nicole's going to share with us her summary of visiting the display villages. Guys, we are joined back by Nicole. Welcome back to the New Property Show. We've spoken about the last couple of episodes, your experience with the display home villages, your meet and greets. Now let's get into the summary. So want to really know, did any of the sales advisors, consultants or hosts give you any quotes, and have you been followed up since?
Well, the ones that took my details, yes, have followed up with quotes and emails and telephone calls. Obviously the ones that didn't take my details, I haven't heard from them. Okay,
and I guess with the quotes that you've got so far, did you feel they're competitive? Did you get a floor plan suggested to you? How do they know what you're buying?
Yes, the quotes that I did get did have suggested floor plans. I was working on a one-storey build. That was contingent with the situation that I gave them.
And what was your budget?
My budget was $650.
Okay. And did the quotes come in below or above?
No, they were all pretty much in that price point. Well, actually the one that I really liked wasn't within my price point, but again, it's all dependent on the land as well. And what I learned from going out there is that there's not a lot of land available. So that and a couple of them did touch on that, to say, well, really we need to find the land first, and then we need to find a house that's going to fit on the land, because the land.
Did any of them actually offer to help you find the land?
No, they didn't.
Do you think that would have been an important part of the process if they had?
Absolutely, but I think that probably a really good thing to do is probably to get someone that actually knows this business to actually do it for me, because I wasn't aware of how what the process is. I did learn a lot from going out to the display villages, but what I've realised is you need a lot of time to actually go to the different villages. You need to know what land is becoming available. So there's a lot of moving parts within the process. So having someone that is across all of that would be really helpful, I feel.
So Nicole, do you mind if I give you some feedback with what I believe this experience could have looked like for you?
Sure.
Okay. So let's say you've arrived at the display home village. Ideally, you've made a call or you've turned up and you've found a display home village that's open. One of the key attributes I'd give you there is ringing the land estates to see what display villages they have actually there, what builders they have there and who they would recommend. So first tip would be speak to a land agent. They'll have friends, both guys and girls, in the industry that are leading salespeople across there. Second tip, I believe that should have been really given to you, is more questions when you've opened the display home drawers, which is what was your budget, what's your time frame for build, have you got pre-approval for finance, would you like assistance with your land, and what can we do to help you today? Other than that, coming back from the display homes, maybe some of the things that could have been explained to you could have been, would you mind if we give you a walk through the display home and get a feel of your needs and wants, and you get shown what's standard and what's not standard, because we haven't covered whether 9-foot ceilings are standard, the cookers are in there, whether the Caesar stone's included, whether the high quality carpet's included. So I think a list of extras would have also been really helpful for you. Then some time maybe to sit down and gone through the brochures and picked a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom home, and maybe a couple of suggested plans to take home and a couple of packages that might have been put together. Separate to that, what could have also happened was ideally a quote on the spot if you'd had time, offer you a tea or coffee, give you a quote, give you a follow-up call, see if you're prepared to buy, and then of course whatever the builder special is there from there. After that, you should get a text, an email and a phone call to say thank you for coming through XYZ Homes. After that, they would then call you in a few days to see if they can have another appointment to come back through and get your feedback. I believe if that process was followed, you'd be probably a lot further down your buying cycle right now, and you'd know whether you're purchasing a brand new home or leaning towards an established home. So that's the feedback I'd give you. Times may have changed, but I think services should always be a 10 out of 10. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the New Property Show. We'll see you again in season 2.
Thanks, Steve.
Joe, thanks for joining us on the New Property Show. Really would love to get a great understanding from the client's perspective, a little bit about your journey. I'll let you lead.
Well, my journey initially was try to, fill some gaps in my business and all the rest of it, and just looking for the right people, just pretty much just to, connect with initially.
Yep.
Because, it is a journey that you want to be comfortable with the people that, you kind of surround yourself around. Since then, obviously, we've just, done a lot. Obviously purchased a few properties along the way, so looking forward to them to be completed, and seeing all those outcomes, which is kind of exciting.
I guess after we met, we listened to your goals,
Yeah.
but we created a team around you.
Exactly, that's
so
true.
far that's been
Yeah.
a couple of builders. We've worked with some finance specialists.
Correct.
I don't know. What about our trip? We end up in Queensland.
And then obviously, we did, build those other relationships with all those other, professionals in the field.
What's made you nervous and what's made you confident? So initially, go back 6 months ago. What was the things that scared you, and now what's the most exciting for you?
I think the scary part was initially actually just trying to find someone to talk to about it all with, and having the confidence, to do that. And that's where I think, connection is important, because I did, obviously, before we come into contact, I did speak to other organisations, but just didn't feel that they were just the right fit for me, because I guess I'm just the type of person that likes to ask a lot of questions, and my mind's always running as well, so I just like to fit in with like-minded people. So I just was never confident in running with those organisations, and then obviously, we met, and the universe has brought us into so many different areas and experiences, so it's been obviously the right choice.
And what's the most exciting for you now?
And I guess the most exciting part is that, I've actually, been able to do it, because it can be a fairly daunting process. You don't know if you're going to tick all the boxes, especially being self-employed. It's not easy. A lot of things don't always go your way.
Perfect. And you've really been a great advocate for that at the moment, because you're researching areas. We've looked at Queensland, we're looking at Darwin, we've looked at Perth. We've kind of covered everything, and I think you never really stopped learning. I think that's
never
the key.
In my wildest imagination I would have thought I'll be building in those areas.
Yeah.
That was the furthest from my mind. I would have thought maybe it would have been locally around me, or who knows what.
What advice would you give to someone else in a similar position to you? What's their first couple of steps? What should they do?
I guess in a simple form, invest in people.
I love it. Fantastic. So it's not just property, it's people.
Let's invest in each other.
Thank you so much for being on the New Property Show. We'd love to have you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, thank you for joining us on the New Property Show.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.
Mate, you're a broker, but not only do you specialise in broking, you specialise in, we've been speaking about private lending.
Correct.
Love to hear more about that. Who uses it and why? We've had a lot of brokers on this segment, but hasn't come up very often.
Sure, yeah. So basically, I guess first we need to define what private lending is. Private lending is basically private money that comes from a private individual or private lender who acts on behalf of that individual or investor, and that is lent to the borrower against their residential or commercial security. Similar to a bank lending. The only difference is that obviously there's less qualification criteria, less income verification process, less due diligence on the lender's behalf, and that simply means it's a lot faster process.
So does that mean you pay a little bit of a higher rate for this service? Is that
exactly
correct?
Right. So it's definitely a lot more expensive than a traditional bank lend. At the moment, I guess the private lending rates in the current market are seen between 11 to 13% per annum. So definitely a lot more expensive. Plus, there's actually additional fees on top of that as well.
And what would normally tip, what would tip off, a client needing private lending?
Well, the main reason that I've seen a lot of my clients that we use private lending for is basically they have a very short settlement to meet. For example, the settlement's in 5 days or 7 days, and the bank hasn't necessarily given them an approval or a response. And obviously, they here pulling their hair out. So in that case, private lending is very helpful because of the process being so simple, it's a lot faster. So the private lender can settle and get the money a lot faster for the vendor.
Shan, what's the pros and cons of private lending?
Yeah, so the main benefit of private lending is that, again, the speed that the private lender can turn the loan around at. So again, if you have a short settlement that you need to meet within a couple of days, this is where the private lender can really shine because of their less assessment criteria. They can turn around a lot faster, and the borrower can most likely save their 5 or 10% deposit they've already paid for the property. So that's one of the big benefits. So the second benefit, I guess, is it comes to the borrower building a relationship with that particular lender or the private investor. If they do need to borrow again down the track or roll over that loan, once it's come to a maturity to extend the term or something like that.
Beautiful. And what about the cons?
Well, one of the main disadvantages of a private lend is, I would say, that it's obviously a lot more expensive. So like we said before, the interest rate is typically between 11 to 13% per annum. On top of that, there's fees such as establishment fees, engagement fees, line management fees, legal fees, compared to a traditional bank lend.
Thank you so much for joining us on Your Property Show.
Thank you, Steve.
Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us on the New Property Show. 3D printing for houses nonetheless.
We are a leading manufacturer of large-scale 3D printers with emphasis on automating the construction industry. We are a startup based in Melbourne. We are a scale-up now. We were a startup a couple of years ago when we built an array of different types of 3D printers, specifically on large scale. Folks might know more about the small or desktop 3D printer we can prototype with. We took it a little bit on steroids and we decided to build a house with it. We're a team of scientists. We were early career scientists doing our PhDs at the time. And we decided that maybe there is a better way to do things. Not every house needs to look like a square and a rectangle. You can have more curves there. The current ways and methods of constructing things, they depend on very, if you will, unreliable, the least to say, supply chains. You don't need 4 or 5 materials just to build a wall. And we're talking about different methods that we've compared it to. Imagine replacing all of that and have a robot that is at 100 micron accuracy, better than a heart surgeon. We just wanted to see some manufacturing processes into the construction industry. We've recently launched our largest printer, which is the largest mobile AI-powered 3D printer in the world.
Phenomenal.
It is. And here's the thing, in Australia we have a lot of awesome R&D. I would argue that we are at the pinnacle when it comes to this particular sector. But sometimes we feel timid to, speak highly about it. But in this case, it's been already purchased in a number of countries, in the USA, in Southeast Asia.
So can I ask, you've actually built a 3D home yet? Has one been put on the ground?
So we have, yes, there is one, which happened just at the end of this year, But before that, we built a couple of prototypes. Our major prototype, which was the first ever house to be 3D printed in Australia and the Southern Hemisphere. We called it a heptapod.
Love it.
It's just 7 different kind of irregular shape. We draw it in a napkin. It was one of the customers who was doing a lot of Airbnbs in his own property. And we showed how we can print it, and we did it in the summer.
How long did that take to print?
That took us about 2 days, but at the time we printed it, if you will, bespoke. We were using a smaller printer.
So 2 days to create a home.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. And we talked about in some of these episodes, sometimes there can be from slab to frame to locker, it could be a number of months. So 2 days is absolutely phenomenal.
And on the slab, on site. And that's the ability we provide. That's why our printers are mobile. So we have a self-propelled crane that you take from the truck down on the site. Right now it can do it in 16 to 18 hours. So in almost half a day, you can have the whole blueprint. So the process starts, you get the blueprint like what we have here. It becomes into a geometric code and then get printed layer by layer onto the slab. 150 layers precisely if you're going 3 meter high, double that if you're going 2 stories, etc.
So you're providing the machinery that provides the solution for builders. So with the next 12 months, how many of these 3D printed homes do you expect to see on site?
So for the next 12 months, within between 10 to 20, but we understand, because we are one company at this stage, and we knew that from early on, but we're equipping folks as we speak. There are printers that are being commissioned, and people are getting trained onto how to use them, and that's why we came up with a prediction, because once our story got out, we started getting calls from across the countries.
Thank you so much for joining us on the New Property Show.
Thank you for having me. Anytime.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Hi guys, welcome back to, the New Property Show. We've just covered off an amazing question before, but now we're going to talk about going about getting builders' quotes. Do you go and visit the displays? Do you go online? Where would you start when looking for a brand new property?
I'm just telling from self-experience, like I built my own house, so I went to this display home of Metricon, and it was pretty amazing because you actually get to feel everything what you're going to have it in your own house. That makes it easier. So for me, having that personal touch is more important. And because I've been through that journey, I would recommend to actually go and meet the builder.
And in terms of your journey there, how many times did you actually go and see the builder before you actually paid a deposit?
Just once. Like
you can come see me anytime.
Oh yeah. No, it was pretty amazing. You're like I'm not promoting Metricon, but like their journey and their process was pretty amazing. You're like they have this structure where you just meet the salesperson and then they take you to the display homes and stuff and they show you everything. And literally 8 hours, your home is ready on the system.
So processes and systems are really important when you're looking for a builder.
Yes.
I'm going to throw over here to Rex. So how would you go about it?
I would go to a display home, but I wouldn't necessarily trust the display home. It's the builder's display home, so it's probably the best they will do. Go see other builds they've done as well to make sure, see what isn't on the display, see what's behind the shelf.
So you'd actually recommend going out, breaking into sites, or would you recommend...
Not breaking into sites.
Wearing ninja suit.
Yeah, if you need a lawyer though. But you can ask the builder, what else have you done? And go see him. If you can knock on people's doors and ask how the build's going.
With that said too, like one of the first houses I ever built, I actually went around to the salesperson's house and actually saw a real home under construction. Typically, too, a lot of clients actually have come through from recommendations and referrals. So you've actually sat in people's real homes and you've seen those benefits as well. I would like to throw over to Kerry. What would you do?
I think I would come and see you as a builder's advocate.
Good. You're very welcome.
Perfect. So you'd actually seek out counsel and surround yourself with the right team.
Correct.
And I guess before sourcing out Rebecca from Nine Dots, plug for Rebecca from Nine Dots. How would you actually go about sourcing an expert?
Well, again, it's all about having trusted professionals around you. So first thing I would do, especially in our business, we reach out to our network and get the most appropriate and respected people within the industry.
Okay, so you're about trusted network, referral partnerships,
Yes.
people that you already know in your existing network.
Yes.
Let's throw over to you, Rebecca. You've probably got the most you could share on this. You've got a lot of services, I guess, that are provided with Nine Dots. So let's cover a couple of those services because I think some of them are linked.
Yeah.
So where does a client typically meet you, and then how would you take them through that building journey?
Yeah, so clients generally will get referred into us from a mortgage broker or a conveyancer. We've got a whole heap of services to support depending on where a client's at currently in their build journey. But while we're talking choosing a builder and finding a quote, if a client was to go to a display home, they may get a few different quotes from different builders. That may be a time that they'd come to us and get us to do a quote comparison for them and just work through the pros and cons of each and touch on some things that they may not yet have considered. But a big part of it too for us, I guess we take a slightly different approach in finding a builder, given that's the whole purpose of it, what we do, is we focus on, from a starting point, focus on what a client's looking for and then finding a builder that's the ideal fit. Because sometimes it could come down to something that's really minor, such as a client might want polished concrete in their build. Now, that sounds so simple, but collectively over, say, 300 different things that they're wanting in their build, there might be a builder that does polished concrete, a builder that doesn't do polished concrete, but there's also going to be that builder in the middle that say, sure, I'll do polished concrete, but you're going to pay a premium for it. So it's just really important when you're finding a builder, regardless of whether you do it online or if you go in person, again, it comes back to being super clear of what you're wanting included and what you're actually getting, and just being across the fine print.
With that said, so if a customer come and saw you,
Yeah.
is that done via Zoom, in person, or how do they deal with yourself?
So for us, it's really personal depending on the client. A lot of clients, it is in person because it's such a long journey that we're supporting them with. If we get an opportunity to sit with them and meet them, it's a better chance to really go deeper on the questions, not just that surface level. But in saying that, courtesy of COVID, a lot is done on Zoom. So it just comes down to personal preference for clients.
Okay, and do you recommend, we've talked about online, so let's say you live in a different state.
Yeah.
Typically that is going to be online there. I'm curious to hear from, I guess, the gentleman first. Would you start with Google? Do you go reviews, or how do you find a builder in another state? Do you look at house and land packages, or would you identify land first, then the builder? I guess I'd love to hear what your journey would be.
In my experience, again, there is plenty of opportunities out there to be able to get your own peer group and networks to recommend the right companies for you that do operate interstate.
Okay, so you'll once again lean back into your network, your trusted
Correct.
areas, and I guess if you were investing, while we're on the topic, which state would you pick?
Again, I'm not the expert as to where to go and buy, so I'll be the first to be reaching out to, an advocate who knows the property market, especially in other states.
Perfect.
And making sure that they pick the right spot, accessing capital growth and that sort of thing. I mean, two that have clearly going really well at the moment is South Australia and Western Australia, for example. We're seeing a little bit of movement there.
Definitely seeing a lot of traction over in South Australia at the moment. There's a lot of Sydney-siders and Melbournians sort of going over that way, just due to price point, vacancy, that sort of stuff as well. So, Rex, how would you go about shopping online?
Shopping online, I think there's three, for clothes or property. I think people choose for three reasons. One is trusted source, is probably one of the most prominent reasons. Another is you got to get along with the person. So if you find a trusted source, if you get referred a builder, give them a call, see how you get along with the person. Because if you clash, it's not going to be a fun journey. And a third would be they're an industry expert in the field. So that comes down to Google reviews and the like.
All right, and over to you, V.
I'll agree with Kerry, especially being in this mortgage industry. We get our majority of the business through the referral partners, and especially dealing with like expert buyers advocate in the industry who have been in the industry for more than 20 years. They know their part. But in my personal opinion, I would still buy somewhere in South Australia because their median price range is still lower than Melbourne. So you have that opportunity of capital growth in South Australia.